150 million. Hata uwe mmoja leo kwenye wamebaki kesho tatoka nje.
The reason we've gathered here in the middle of town is because no justice, no peace.
Jana nilikuwa super, basi nilikuwa natoka 200. Nani ata afford? Wacha hiyo ujinga wametuzoea.
I could see in the eyes of the police, they are now ready to kill.
It was a wave never seen before. A wave so strong, sweeping across Kenya like a wildfire.
Nairobi city is clearly on fire, and it's been like this for several hours and counting. The youth are here to just send one message, that they are tired of the hiked taxes by the government. For the first time in Kenya's history, a youthful generation was standing up against the excesses of their government. The anti-tax protest in Kenya grabbed global attention, spreading from the country's capital Nairobi to towns across the nation. A movement bonded and banded on a common cause, united against the proposed punitive tax hikes by the government of the day.
Going forward, this country now knows that we, as the younger generation, we have a voice and we have a say.
You can't be campaigning for one thing and telling us different.
A middle cries, uprising and agitation in the streets has always, in the history of revolutions in world history, indicated that things have gotten to a very bad point.
Tools peke yake tuko nazo ni online presence.
The Gen Z movement was largely born on social media, mainly TikTok and X, championed predominantly by a disenfranchised middle and upper working class youth, protesting against the contentious Finance Bill 2024, laden with punitive taxes. Armed with only their smartphones, bottles of water to wash off tear gas and placards, these young people mobilized aggressively online.
Kesho 12 p.m. nje ya Parliament. Hata ukiweza kuja even earlier, because I'll be there earlier. Sawa, nitakuwa na shati yangu hiyo ya Hitman. Kinispoti hapo say hi, but like for real guys, according to Article 37, it states that we do have the right to protest. Okay, so like we kuja.
Kuna 600 million ya kurenovate nyumba. Yani nyumba ilishajengwa na 400 million. So ni kupaka rangi, kununua light fixtures mpya, kununua viti mpya. Wow.
So how central was social media in your clamor?
I think social media has been very instrumental in mobilizing people to come out for the protest, in educating people about the Reject Finance Bill, in rallying people together, in highlighting the injustices that are happening right when the protests are going on, in highlighting the abductions and the human rights violations that have been going on.
But soon this movement morphed into broader socio-economic protests. In Africa, opinion polls show a decline in the satisfaction with democracies, especially among young people. A report by the Afrobarometer from 36 countries surveyed in 2021-2022 shows that only 38% of the populace is satisfied with the way democracy functions in their countries. Kenya has a youthful population with over 80% of the population aged 35 years and below. Youth unemployment is as high as 35%.
Bottom.
In the run-up to the 2022 presidential elections, President William Ruto narrowly ascended to power, promising jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities for the Kenyan youth.
Munasema tubadilishe, tuanze chini, ama munataka tungoje ile ya juu atujui itafika lini? Tuanze hapa chini, ndio kila kijana apata ajira kwanza, hapa chini.
2 years on, frustration seems to grow.
I think the president is completely out of touch with the reality of majority of Kenyan people, with the reality of majority of Kenyan youth. We need to have alternative political leadership that respects accountability. The lack of political accountability is what has been ailing our country. Somebody steals NYS billions, no accountability. In fact, they are governor and in some county. Somebody kills somebody, they remain governor. Somebody steals our money and we don't hold them accountable.
Like many uprisings of this nature in Africa, this one was not devoid of bloodshed. Human rights organizations report over 40 people killed so far, some as young as Kennedy Omondi, killed in Rongai by a police bullet at only 12 years.
Mtoto wangu hana hatia. Mtoto wangu ako 12 years old. Asienda maandamano. Hata kama ni nusu ya risasi, hata kama ni harufu ya risasi, mtoto wangu hana hatia. Risasi ni kuwa mwizi, sio mtoto.
Another youngster, 16-year-old Winfrey Wairimo, a Form 2 student who had just returned home for half-term, shot in the belly while helping her mother run a food kiosk. Schools have reopened across the country, but she is not resuming anytime soon.
When you are dealing with quelling civilian violence, barring active combat, you would expect that there are even such things as rubber bullets, which can hit very hard. If it lands on you, it lands hard, and you think twice before making the next move. What happened to those rubber bullets? Why were they not put to use? Somebody just went out of his way because he wanted to prove a point.
The protests have recorded several abductions. While some have since resurfaced, others are yet to be found. I have come to Kiambu Road to meet Tabitha Wanjiro. She is here to report her missing son at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations offices. 28-year-old Joseph Mwangi went missing during the protests and is yet to be found.
Hatuna habari kabisa. Yeye ni kijana mdogo 28 years anaweza kuwa ameenda, hatuna habari kabisa. Tumaini yangu nipate mtoto wangu. Mimi naomba serikali nisaidie kutafuta mtoto wangu. Kwa sasa tumefanya keje tunaweza fanya. Tumereport. Simu tunaambiwa anatafutwa na hiyo tracking. Sasa mimi naomba tu wanisaidie kutafuta mtoto wangu. Juu sisi hatuwezi mtafuta hivyo, hatuwezi simama kwa barabara tunaangalia kila mtu mwenye anapita tuangalie kama ni yeye.
Although she has no idea if she'll ever see her son again, she seems certain that the state has a hand in it. Every day that passes without seeing him makes her fear for the worst.
Kama kuna watu wameshika watoto wetu au wote wenye wanasemekana wamepotea, including my son, tafadhali naomba kwa jina la Yesu, sikieni uchungu wa wazazi. Naomba tusikieni uchungu ya wazazi. Naomba tusikieni uchungu ya wazazi. Wachilieni watoto wetu. Watoto wetu hawana mambo, hawana shida, hawana vita, hawakuwa na chochote, walikuwa na andamana.
I know that the president said he's ready to dialogue, but an individual or a group that is ready to dialogue does not engage in violence. You cannot say you're ready to dialogue with the youth and again you are the same group that is abducting them.
29-year-old Rex Kanyike Masai's burial in Kamodhanga, Machakos County was emotional. Rex was the first victim of a violent police response to anti-tax protests. The pathologist's report showed that he died from excessive bleeding from a gunshot to his thigh.
To lose a firstborn child for no reason. Hakuwa mgonjwa, just a phone call away. Rex is normal.
Angry protesters renamed this road, named after Kenya's founding president Jomo Kenyatta, to Rex Masai Avenue in honor of a man they consider a hero. During the protest, police brutality became a huge talking point. Plainclothes police were seen manhandling protesters. On several occasions, this unmarked maroon vehicle was seen roaming the streets and unleashing terror on defenseless activists. All happening in broad daylight.
Police brutality will not be dealt with by training. Police brutality will be dealt with by showing with example. The way these policemen were behaving was clearly under command. They were following instructions. We need to have all those who are in positions of command that were directing these police officers to be held personally liable.
Tuesday, June 25th, protesters made true their threat to storm Kenya's parliament, happening at a time when legislatures were busy voting on the new taxes. And once inside, they kept advancing, despite the sounds of the gunshots getting louder. Several people were killed during the invasion. To this day, the government has not stated the exact number of people who died here. KTN News captured the moment some of the protesters were gunned down.
Today, Kenya experienced an unprecedented attack on its democracy, rule of law, and the integrity of its constitutional institutions. An otherwise legitimate expression of the fundamental rights and freedoms of assembly, demonstration, picketing, and petitioning of public authorities by a section of law-abiding citizens of the Republic of Kenya was infiltrated and hijacked by a group of organized criminals. I thank our security officers who were on duty today for applying themselves to the best of their abilities in the defense of Kenya and its people.
I think the president is completely out of touch with the reality of majority of Kenyan people, with the reality of majority of Kenyan youth, because you do not call millions of people who are coming to express their dissatisfaction with this bill that is very punitive, criminals. In fact, he needs to apologize. And in fact, from my own opinion, I think the president and the deputy president have hijacked our democratic institutions like the parliament, like the judiciary even.
And when the guns went silent, the count for bodies began. We filmed this body with a backpack lying a few meters from where Parliament was burning. He's said to have had his filming equipment on his back before it was confiscated upon death. Ibrahim Kamau was one of those killed at Parliament. The 19-year-old was brutally shot in the neck, his life taken in an instant. We caught up with his grief-stricken mother at the city mortuary, where his post-mortem was conducted.
Nikapata madam alikuwa hapa. Tukamuuliza tunataka kuna wale watu waliletwa hapa jana. Wale walikuwa kwa maandamano. Akatuambia alikuwa amevaa nguo inakaaje? Nikamuelezea alikuwa na jaketi iko na pink na blue. Akaniambia ngoja kidogo. Nilikuwa na nyanyake. So kungoja kidogo akaingia ndani. Akatoka. Akaniambia ingieni. Kuingia nilimpata pale wamemlalisha. Na hivyo ndo nilienda kujua ni yeye. Na hapo ndo pale nilimpata tu amelala. Nikaangalia nikapata mpigwa risasi.
Parliament's break-in was fast and furious. Members of Parliament were stranded. Some had to be evacuated from the lower tunnels and alleys of Parliament.
I have never seen such.
Some tried escaping using ambulances. The Kenyan government deployed the military to restore calm. The state had declared a national security emergency. But to what extent was this justified?
You hardly set the military upon your people, upon your nation. And so this is unprecedented. I think the last time we saw tankers like this, I wasn't born yet, in the 1982 coup. And so it's unfortunate that we are seeing them in our streets, and yet we are living our day-to-day.
My name is Ronald Kipruto, a journalist here at Standard Media Group. I remember that day on the 25th of June, it was on a Tuesday, we heard a voice from the speakers up there. They were now saying we are going to use live bullets. Now that's when we knew it had gone. It was getting bad. A few moments later, we see some bodies being brought. Now we were on the other side of Parliament. Remember, we are on the side of the security team. Then the protesters are on the roundabout there at the Holy Family Basilica. It was very hard. It was very difficult. I remember standing there and seeing bodies come.
The guys on this side filling Parliament must have felt frustrated. We have such a huge number coming towards us. We are deficient in terms of our own boots on the ground. We are deficient in terms of weaponry. We are deficient in terms of equipment. And there is no plan of how we approach and be able to fend off these people who are attacking us. Next thing that we saw was the determination. The protesters and the Maandamano people, Gen Zs, were very determined.
What followed were two separate State of the Nation addresses, one in Nairobi by the president and another in Mombasa by his deputy, both reading from different scripts.
Listening keenly to the people of Kenya, who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill.
We have a dysfunctional National Intelligence Service that has exposed the president, the government, and the people of Kenya. Had the National Intelligence Service briefed the president 2 months ago about how the people of Kenya feel about the Finance Bill 2024, so many Kenyans would not have died.
The president says, I concede. He has been pushed against the wall. But we're not so sure, Francis, whether the president has conceded, because to concede means then he must go back to his cabinet and tell cabinet, I processed this bill through this forum before taking it to Parliament, and you bought it, you endorsed it. Why didn't anyone of you here tell me that this was a bad bill? Look, you have smeared my face with egg, and therefore I request every one of you to give me your letters of resignation by close of business today.
The youth wanted something more.
We are saying what is at stake when they steal. We see children are being denied food, wakienda shuleni. You know, us, when we were going to school, it was free during Kibaki era. Hatukuwa tunalipa school fees, yet we would go to school, get education, eat. Right now, our younger siblings are paying school fees and then they can't even eat. We do not understand. We don't get it. And then we see people flaunting lavish, luxurious lives, being extravagant. We do not want to see such things. It does not take so much to know that this is wastage.
Earlier that day at the All Saints Cathedral, protesters had converged in a medical campus running on the sidelines within the compound. Due to this, police centered their focus there.
Over 2,000 people.
In this video, Reverend Canon Evans Omolo of the cathedral is seen making an appeal to the commander of the Rapid Deployment Unit.
Creating a crowd here and unnecessarily, unnecessarily detonating tear gas into the church.
I am meeting Reverend Omolo, one of the few members of the clergy who has not shied away from speaking his mind regarding how the security apparatus apply themselves during the protests.
Tuesday, the 25th of June, for me will remain a day that I will remember for pretty much the rest of my life, because it was really a dark day. What angered me is that the protesters were fairly peaceful, but the police had the audacity to throw tear gas canisters within the compound. We did not consult with anyone, we did not talk with anyone. I felt this is unacceptable, and as a leader of the cathedral and as a person with a responsibility to defend the people, I created a way through the crowd, pushed them back, made my way out to the head of the crowd, and I walked straight towards the officers.
Did we have to lose a single life in these protests?
I would want to categorically state that there are people in this country and in the government with blood on their hands who sanctioned the shoot to kill orders that saw several people lose their lives.
A group of medics took to the front line to help victims of the protests, among them Dr. Austin Omondi, alias Japrado, who had earlier been abducted and later released by the state. The medics put up makeshift centers at various spots in the city, including Jamia Mosque, I&M, Holy Family Basilica, among others. Volunteer doctors like Amakove Wala have come out to say that some medics were assaulted and threatened as they went about their business. Additionally, some shadowy people masqueraded as medics to steal their records. Private businesses were not spared. Supermarkets, food joints were looted, including several other businesses. And when Kenya's Senate resumed its sittings, this became one huge subject that could not be swept under the carpet.
Young people are exhausted. They don't have jobs. How would they have money to look for artillery and knives and guns? But still, we poured every single piece of armor on these young children yesterday, Mr. Speaker. And as a young person myself, I am disgusted, I am appalled, I am completely beside myself.
We cannot kill our children and think we will be okay. We cannot use so much force and expect we will go into our houses and sleep. I personally cannot sleep. I cannot sleep from what I watched here yesterday, outside of the parliament, where we were pleading, but they were going on with the guns. And those kids only had twigs. The stones came because the bullets were coming. The stones came because the canisters were coming every minute. Those kids were unarmed.
Kenya's Civilian Police Oversight Authority, IPOA, says it's investigating tons of cases of police misconduct during the protests. Global bodies including the United Nations and the African Union have condemned the violence that erupted in Kenya. Some see the Gen Z uprising as a pivotal moment in Kenya's relentless drive for an inclusive and a sustainable democratic space, likening the uprising to the Arab Spring and the Occupy Wall Street in the US. In Kenya's history, some see this reawakening carrying the footprints of some of Kenya's most pivotal moments, including the fight for independence and the fight for multipartyism and the birth of a new constitution. The youth have singled out corruption and mismanagement of public funds as the root cause of their economic and financial problems. But these youth remain steadfast and believe this is the only way to get their government to listen. On Thursday, the 11th of July, President William Ruto pulled a surprise, dissolving his entire cabinet.
In line with the powers given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the Cabinet Secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya, except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs.
The future is there for the country. It's either going to be an evolutionary future because the president does the right things, or it is going to be a revolutionary future because the president continues to do the wrong things. And when all is said and done, all these things percolate and boil down to one institution and to one person, His Excellency the President.
This wave that the Gen Zs have started should not be taken negatively, should be taken positively. It's a wave to change how we do things. It's a way to change even our governance structures. A realization that also the Gen Zs need to be given a position at the table. They should not be talked at, they should be talked to.
But how this will shape the days to come remains to be seen. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News.